welcome and thanks for sitting at home and watching this in this crazy world we're in. But yeah, thank you. We've got a lot of fun stuff to show and talk about, and it's all about Primal. So it's super exciting. And yeah, let's get into it. And I want to introduce everybody that's joining us today. First, we've got Scott Wills, who's the production designer. Then we have Joanne Higginbottom, who's one of the musicians, does music for the show.
Hey.
Then we have Tyler Bates, who also does music. Then we have Joel Valentine. Joel does sound effects. So it's kind of a special treat because we never get the sound effects designer to join us for these things. And Joel's far away. But it's great to have you, Joel. Then we've got Christian Schellewald, who's the background designer, does the black and white backgrounds, all their environments. Then Darrick Bachman, who's the writer.
Oh.
Hello, very original, Darrick. Thank you for writing that. Beautiful. And then Steven DeStefano, who is the character designer. So Primal. So how did it all start? Where did it come from? And it's funny. Primal started as actually a comic book because I think I was kind of, I don't know if it was like 2008 or maybe even earlier, and I was kind of frustrated where I was creatively. There was a recession happening. I opened up a studio, but there was nothing happening. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll just do a comic. And it started off as just these kid drawings. And I wanted to do, like, I was a big Conan fan. So I wanted to do like my version of Conan. And so I did these little drawings, and it was very much Tezuka inspired. And my whole love for Tezuka kind of came late in life, where I was hired to write an Astro Boy script. And so I reread all the Astro Boy comics, and I just kind of fell in love with the drawings in them. And you could even see, like, this is my first image of it. You could see I started to write Savage and then Primal to get the name. And these are literally my first kind of ideas of it. And here he is. And so it's all very cartoony, very, very different than where we ended up with, you know, but still essentially a guy or a kid on a dinosaur, you know, having adventures. And I think I even did a page and Scott painted it. Scott, I don't know if, like, we were just trying to different things, just trying to do something different at the time. Yeah, nothing to add. Okay, great.
I was looking at artwork.
Oh no, you got to speak and look at the same.
I was waiting for my painting to come up.
That's always scintillating to listen to someone watch artwork. That's always great. So.
No, I mean, it started off very young looking, like a kid's show, which I don't think I was super into. So just kind of trying stuff and some stylized stuff, but yeah, that's how the early stuff went.
Yeah, and so then a few years passed, and we were doing the Samurai Jack adult version, right? The last season, season 5. And the thing about Jack that everybody, when that hit, everybody really responded to the sequences with no sound, right? And so it kind of sparked an idea, like, wow, I wonder, and I love those sequences too, and we've done them, you know, we've done them throughout. And I started to think, what if we could do a whole show with just those sequences? And they generally had no dialogue. And then I started to think about, like, well, what idea what idea makes sense for this? And then the little kid on the dinosaur came up again. And I realized, like, you know, my taste and sensibility got older. And so I wanted to age it up. And then I started doodling out somebody older, still with a Tezuka style, the initial drawings were. But then so then I started doing a storyboard basically from that idea and see if I could do, and initially it was just going to be like a 11-minute or 7-minute short. And I didn't think anybody in their right mind would want to buy a silent show, but artistically it's where I was. And so I was going to be adult, no dialogue, really more hardcore, like what we were doing with Jack, but even Jack for Adult Swim, but even pushing it more. And then I started boarding it. just as an idea. And I was even telling Scott, like, yeah, maybe we'll do it freelance and we'll just have this cool little short and nothing might come of it, But then at the end of Samurai Jack, we finished, and Mike Lazo, our boss, he goes, "So what's next?" And I go, "Well, I got this little thing." And just on a whim, I showed him the storyboard and he loved it. And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then I brought, Steven on, and we started to draw what it's going to be. Because the Tezuka stuff, it kept getting organically, just kept getting older. And I think for me and for Scott and Darrick and stuff, we always wanted to do Frazetta. Right. And so how do you do an animated Frazetta? Because it's, we can't do it that it looks exactly like that. But how can you translate it? Right. And so that was kind of the big inspiration. And the other inspiration was the Robert E. Howard Conan books and his other writings. And I love the Arnold movie, of course. But then when I read the books, it was such a bigger world and such a better character. And there were these like little short stories that you jump in and out of, and you just start, and Conan's in the desert with somebody and there's some stuff happens and it goes crazy. And I thought it was perfect for the type of storytelling. So we started, and the test of a show is always if you can write 10 episodes right away without going to space or a dude ranch. Right. So if you can write 10 character episodes right away. And I jotted down 10 episodes, and I think like 6 of them we actually made from that initial little ideas. Like the Rage of the Ape Men was one of them right away. You got to fight some monkeys because that's always good. And so then Steven and I started doodling cavemen.
Yeah, that early stuff, I don't know what Steven was drawing at first. But I don't know if you remember, but I was pretty frustrated. I wanted it to be much more serious, and I would get excited if it was a much more adult. And
Right.
We have Adult Swim, and we've done so many stylized shows and cartoons that are, more for kids or young adults. So I kept kind of pushing you towards the Cage comic that you had done. And because that to me was the perfect look. But your reaction to that was, well, that's just too hard. That's really, really hard to draw.
Yeah.
So, but I think eventually that's kind of where you went. Yeah, Steven?
Scott's right, Genndy. It is really, really hard to draw. But the evolution was interesting because there was that 7-year period where we didn't do anything with it or something like that. There was a big chunk between like when I first saw Primal, and it was the figures were fleshed out. They were more human sized, but with dinosaurs, but they were still very Tezuka based.
Right.
And then when you came back to me several years and said, we're doing this, and I was, we still started to look around at Tezuka shapes and then you started throwing names at me like Mike Mignola and Frank Frazetta. And I was like, what are we doing? when did this happen? But it was a cool thing because we'd never seen that on screen before. I thought it was going to look really neat. And then we just kept drawing around trying to find it. And even, I was looking at designs from season 1 and it's still evolving. I'm realizing I'm keep adding more. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
it is. That's totally right. The evolution of character design is, at least for stuff that I've done, is kind of everlasting. Like if you looked, even going back to Dexter, if you look at the very first short to the last, episodes that we did, he kind of started like this, and then he kind of shrunk down and became a little square towards the end of it. And Spear's evolving and Fang's evolving less, I think, but still, even Jack started out much more narrow, and then he kind of got a little bit more girthy as we went on. And Scott's right. Like it's kind of hard after doing all kids stuff to then all of a sudden go adult. And I'm not like a horror guy or a gore guy. Like I like things. I don't like to be scared. I like things nice, right? And so I'm not into blood or all that stuff. And so I wanted
sure? I'm finding that hard to believe based on what I've been drawing for like 2 years.
I do like,
but okay.
I do like the feeling of intensity, right? And if you can watch a cartoon and feel something. Because when you say adult, like, yeah, it's got to have blood and guts. That's all people want. You know, that's the sexy. And what I learned was, right, it's about relationships. And so, and the interesting was, how do we, besides doing the cool visuals and the cool stories, how do we have these characters evolve and have a relationship that you really care about, you know? And I have this big Saint Bernard, a dog, and she's really funny. And I thought, like, well, maybe there's, you know, everybody understands man and beast, or man and dog, or man and cat. Can we do this kind of relationship and have it succeed and have actually people feel and not just tune in for the violence and the action? And Darrick, like, when we started to come up with the stories, it was all pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it was. The biggest challenge is to keep it, since there won't be any dialogue, it was all about the emotion, the bond between the two of them, and making sure that always read clear. So everything about the show is their relationship and how it grows, you know. So everything, and the setup of the world is perfect because everything is trying to kill them at all times. So it's a world where, you know, everything is pushed to its most savage and primal instinct. So if their entire survival is on the line at every moment, they can only rely on each other to survive it. So I think that's when you realize that they're in the bunker together, you can easily start making stories out of it, you know.
Yeah. And what was interesting also is, like, when we started out just like that, like, what are the primal instincts we can communicate, because it's got no dialogue, right? How complex, we're afraid of the complexity because people just won't understand. And as we started doing it and actually seeing the boards come alive, you could really do a lot more. So actually, in this second set that's going to air in October, the stories are so much more complex and interesting, and they're still primal emotions, but they're really complicated about, like, loss and suffering and torment and stuff. And it's really cool. It's like the thing that I think I'm the most proud of that we've done is have these more complex episodes, still no dialogue, still totally visually done. And they're even more and more emotional as we really went deeper into it.
And there's also a gray area of, like, like your classic antagonist, like a classic villain, isn't necessarily a villain. It's just trying to survive as well. So yeah, there's sympathy on that level. So it adds just another depth, an emotional depth to anything that's trying to kill them. There's consequence to that as well. There's feeling, you know, you don't want to have to kill something, but if you don't, you won't survive.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. That's the another key element. Like, we're all fans of the nature shows, right? And so, you know, that idea of, like, oh, here comes this awesome polar bear and it's all cute, and, you know, you want it to survive, and what does he have to eat? But a little baby seal, you know. And so one has to die, and that is great storytelling because you care for both. And it's not the traditional of the bad guy, right? Right. It's more complex, and so that mammoth episode, I think, worked really well, where we had you don't want anybody to die, but then that's the world that they kind of live in. And for this, I wanted to do something else, a different type of system. So I found this studio called Studio Le Cachette, which is in Paris. And they really haven't done anything. They've done, like, little bits in here and there. And I just sent them an email asking, you know, I'm doing a new show. Do they want to work on it? They responded. Luckily, they were fans of Jack and stuff. And so initially we decided to do the first episode only. And so they started working on it, and we started to see the stuff come back, right? And the big difference was we were using this program called TV Paint. And I and Scott we got to see every single frame before it was really committed to color, right? So then what you're seeing now is my storyboards, right? And so we would send the storyboards over, and then what we would get back are layouts. And the layouts were great, and these are the layouts, and I was able to then go over them and adjust. So these are kind of their raw layouts, which is almost like broken down into animation. Here's my fixes on it. And so to have the ability to not just fix things, but also plus them and nuance them and give it more subtlety that's like a feature thing, you know, and there's the animation. And so when we started to get the animation in, I realized like, oh, this is going to be something completely different. They have to do all the episodes. Right. And so, you know, I talked to Brian Miller at Cartoon Network, Mike Lazo, Keith Crawford, and they actually gave us the budget to do it, which is crazy.
Yeah, I thought they would just do the one episode and then go, yeah, that's enough for us. We're not interested. But it is amazing because every week, every Friday, we get their entire week's work. They send it to us. So basically the weekend is going over it and doing what we can. And that's a feature process. It's unbelievable to do that in television. So amazing.
Yeah. And so then the process would be, and the same thing, so kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. So when we started developing the show, Christian, we were working together, like Scott and Christian knew each other from DreamWorks, and we hired Christian to help us with Hotel Transylvania 3. And as soon as I saw Christian's drawings, I was like, wow, this is crazy good. And it's so unique and different. And it was perfect. It was like the perfect timing for Primal to happen, because Christian draws like illustrative, but it's elegant, and it's very different than any kind of backgrounds that I worked with before, because always, we've done stuff that's cartoony, so it was the perfect evolution.
Yeah, when Genndy, when you asked me if I would be interested in joining the show, there was a couple new things for me. One was I never worked in television before, so that was a wonderful steep learning curve. And then the other thing that amazed me was the how adult and real the whole show was in comparison to some other cartoon stuff I worked on before, and especially since the drawing itself was part of the final design. So I'm with all the CG animation work I had done, there's always like what you do is basically you toss afterwards into the delete bin or something. And with Primal, the drawings you do, or the drawings I do, they end up on screen, which is like a completely different experience. And it makes me completely happy to see that.
Yeah, and then you're totally right? That it was your first time on TV. And then, because you did all these amazing drawings of the ship and all these environments for Hotel. And we didn't want to lose, because they're so beautiful, and all the inking is so pretty and charming and appealing, and there's all this amazing art. And for Hotel, you would all get rid of it. There'd be a little bit of it left over just from the design work and composition, but nothing like this. And so Scott and I also were talking about, we're going to leave the line and paint under it, which we've never done before also. So it's truly Christian's line work on television, and it's just incredible.
And it's another thing that I for some strange reason, I come from the drawing side, although I had to do on the job some painting, but I always go back when I do my personal work, it's always drawing. And so it's always line is very important. So I was completely thrilled to find out that this is actually going to have lines even in the backgrounds, because the traditional animation look is kind of, you have an outline around your characters and then you paint as much as you can, no lines in the background. So
right.
This one was different, and I thought this is exactly what I would love to do.
Yeah, I mean, you have these beautiful Christian drawings, and they're very featurey drawings, and they're very naturalistic. And so I would paint them, they'd be kind of beauty paintings, and I think they were way too real. and the colors were too real. And when we say no blue sky, green grass, that just means we just want unexpected colors, just something unusual, something striking, really. So and then I had an idea that I was going to try some crazy, not rendering anything, watercolor washes. And so there was a lot of struggle to try to come up. I don't think Genndy was liking any of the early stuff. Like, it's too rendered. It's too figured out or something. And then I hit with this one painting that I think that you liked. Then eventually you just get into production and you just have to do it. So yeah. We don't have a lot of development time, really. There really is no development time. You just start on an episode and your first stuff is your development. Right.
I just learned very quickly that I completely, over the course of the first season, I completely abolished development drawings. I just draw a background and hope it's right.
Yeah.
No time.
Yep.
And
it's good enough. We just got to.
Well, if they're not right, Genndy always lets you know if it's not right anyway. That's the good thing about working with Genndy.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty awesome with Christian, and the way he works is he does these sketchbooks. And the whole sketchbook has all the backgrounds kind of figured out. And it's super awesome. And this was a gift from Christian, one of his sketchbooks. And then he would just blow this up and do a kind of a final line on it. But anyways, it's fantastic. So then we got into production, and the story started to evolve, like we were talking about. And everything kind of started to come together, and it was just this amazing thing of where we could do, and our process is fast. We would do a storyboard drawing or even talk about a location, and we would just do some quick doodles, right, generally. And so this was, I think, Brian Andrews, who's the storyboard artist, and then I would do a couple of ideas, maybe how that full location is going to look like for an episode. And then Christian would get it after the board is done. And then now he would start doing some more exploration and really pushing the shapes and the design of it even further, which was great. It always got better every step of the way. And then he would do a final drawing of it. And you can see how much just cooler it kept getting, and that's what you want. You want every step to get plussed and not work backwards. Right. And then Scott would get a hold of it, and then he would do the color and the lighting, and it would really just come alive, and it's always fun to go to work and see people you're fans of, and see their artwork. So it's always exciting. That's what I try to give myself, that situation where everywhere I go, I'm fans of the people that I work with, and I can't wait to see what they do. And so this was the situation in a big way. And so that kind of got us going in a good clip. And then Steven was the sole character designer for a while, and he would yell at me about the animals, and he didn't like drawing animals. And
animals are hard to draw.
Yeah, and he quit on me in a crazy way. He had it, no more elephants, even though you drew him so well. It was, but then she's not on the call, but I definitely want to mention Erica Worthylake, and I found her in Canada. And that's the awesome thing about the internet is you can just see some drawings and like, wow, those are cool. And her drawings were all like ponies and unicorns and some realistic animals, but there was something about it that was really cool. There was some elegance to it. And even though the subject matter was completely opposite of what we were doing, I just contacted her and see like, hey, do you want to draw dinosaurs and some creatures? And I gave her like a little, just draw a dinosaur and an elephant or whatever. And she did, and it was great. And then she joined our team, still working from Canada, and handling kind of all the creatures. And she was like, you want people who are nerds about what they do, and she knew all animal anatomy. She doesn't have to look anything up. It's all part of what she's passionate about. is animals. So it's awesome. So that was a really nice ad. And then, so then we kind of were finishing up the first episode, and I'll kind of start, moving into post a little bit. And so Tyler and I and Joanne worked on Samurai Jack and Symbionic Titan, and we have this great relationship. And then we got into this show, and I wasn't sure, everything I want to do different, that sounds different from the last project, from art, storytelling, everything. And so what was going to be the sound musically on this? And I think initially we went down a different path, because I wanted, big, big primitive sounding, maybe orchestral, because we did some more electrical stuff on Jack, trying to push away from what we did. And the first attempt was kind of crazy.
Remember early on, before we got into the first episode, I went over to your house and you showed me some of the initial rendered drawings that were colored, and you played a sequence to me, I think with 300 underscoring it and maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're like, yeah, we're not doing that. But it's like, it's cool, but we're not doing that. And by the time we got into it, we were really queuing in on how can we support this storytelling and emotion with a very raw primal expression, which we are as composers very used to seeing a picture for the first time with someone's music in it. It might be my music from another project, or it might be something else, and that limits the parameters of your imagination. And I remember of course, the first spotting session that we had for Primal, and as all spotting sessions go with Genndy, we talk and catch up about life, and when we're ready to go, Joanne hits record, because we're about to begin the process, and that's when Genndy starts from frame one, just as any of us would when we're kids, and it's like, and he'll take you through the sound and the music, and while it could sound pretentious with me describing how this goes, even though he's going, he gives us a very, exact idea of what he's feeling, and the dynamics and the pacing and all this, without ever citing specific music that would box us into a corner. And that's what's really wonderful. It may take us a few swings to find what the it actually is, but we're still always working from that original conversation, which is something that is very rare in filmmaking and storytelling and commissioned art these days. All the percussion in the show and beyond, but Joanne plays it all. And as composers, we have these libraries nowadays with all this slick percussion. It sounds like big battle drums. We don't use any of it. It's all organically played, honed stuff in the studio, because we want to preserve the integrity of the story. And it's already so visually captivating and beautiful. We feel like we can leave all those warts and imperfections in the sound of the music to really get inside the finite aspect of this storytelling. And Joanne can certainly elaborate on her experience banging on the drums.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely that. I think seeing all the coloring and the animation for the first time, it has just an organic quality to it. So the music needs to have a bit of that too. And whereas we may use some synthetic sort of brass or instruments like that, the drums especially, there's a uniqueness to that, and you can hear whether it's wood or metal, and it's fun too. Honestly, it's just fun to play it every week.
And we do try and take, the electric, as you would say, Genndy. We apply guitar and synthesizers, but do it in a way that doesn't register that way. Like, it doesn't read that way. It just needs to feel like it's an organic aspect of the story itself. And it's a great challenge, but it's super fun. I can't stress enough how unique an experience it is as a composer today to work with a director who is very decisive on where music should be placed and how it should be applied to the storytelling, and where it shouldn't, and where that is about sound, and that's about just processing the sequence of events that just occurred. And to better be able to do that, we pull away from music in order to allow that to happen. And the stories are always captivating for us. There's never anything that seems to be rote or trodden, and the artwork is inspiring. There's just no way you can watch the show without being inspired to create. So it's really awesome in that regard, for sure.
And it's always like finding a balance also between music and effects and kind of segueing in with Joel. And so Joel and I met in way back when on Two Stupid Dogs, when I was first. It was some of my first directing I've ever done, and we would spot. And so the thing about and through Dexter and Powerpuff Girls and Symbionic Titan and Samurai Jack, of course. The thing about, you want to meet people who understand your sensibility, and especially with sound effects, like when I go whoop, like, or anything, Joel knows what I'm talking about, so I don't have to spend all this time explaining what specific Hanna-Barbera sound effect or something that I mean to. We have the same language, and it makes, just with music, just with design, just with color, just with writing, you want to surround yourself with people who understand your sensibility. And it made my life so much easier.
Oh yeah, your ability to vocalize sounds is amazing, because Genndy will, like Tyler was expressing with music, Genndy does the same with me, and he'll vocalize monster sounds and little sounds, and it actually just, you immediately know that what he wants from you. So 99% of the time, he's okay with pretty much everything I deliver. It's that 1% that I end up pulling my hair out, trying to just, like with, I think it was Night Feeder, you locked on to a sound, and I only had one example of that sound. And it was like 2 days later, I finally figured out that dragging a piece of styrofoam on a large piece of wet glass was the sound that ended up being the Night Feeder screaming. But I sourced all these animals for this show. I think I've sourced thousands of animals just to create what was going on. And no, it's always a challenge, but it's a rewarding challenge.
Yeah. And Joel, you also told me once that you were, to get more monster sounds, you bought some like 60s German library or something.
I don't remember that. I went all over the internet looking for specific recordists that have done like elephants. For the elephants, that was one guy who was in Indonesia.
Oh, right.
He had just gone out and just did specific elements. But there's a lot of recordists out there now who are just doing very specialized libraries, and sourced a lot of sounds for Primal. And I mean, it's everything from like raccoons slowed down to not as many tigers and lions as you would think, but cows slowed down for grunts, just assortment of animals, which is it's fun. I enjoy it. And I know you enjoy what I do, and it's always great working with you.
And that's like a really interesting thing, because you know how we talk about there's no dialogue in the show, but then Fang is very vocal, and it was really not until the last scene of the first episode, we're there at the beach, and because I always like, the sign says that dinosaurs are more birds or chickens than really reptiles, right?
Right.
So Joel and I talked about, well, maybe we could find some kind of weird bird sounds that we can put in to, have that be more unique and you really haven't heard it before. And then Joel cut in this like this little clicky sound. And it was so cool, and she basically came alive as a character with her own voice. And as we've gone through all these episodes now, each one has new vocalization, and really, like, even though there's no dialogue, just from his grunting and screaming and her roaring and all the little subtle things is what really makes it so unique. And then there is dialogue, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of cheated. There's still sound. It's not Charlie Chaplin. It's completely alive in a very different way.
Definitely, as like with your character drawings develop, the sounds develop. So as we've gotten into 10 episodes now, I found little things to add to her and to make her more expressive. And oh wow, like, I didn't know this existed. Let's throw this in. So, but your shows are always a challenge, Genndy. We've had a giant spider, we've had flying monkey men, we've had all these.
Yeah, it's not giving anything away. I haven't seen the last 5.
Yeah.
But actually, like I was going to play a little clip just with the no music, as you could hear just all the sound of these raptors and stuff. We could play that real quick, just so you can get a break from us talking.
Oh, fun.
It's so much fun to just watch it again and seeing all everybody's work come together. And what's coming also, because they announced that we're doing 10 more episodes, and what's coming is completely insane. I think these next 5 are really great, and it's even building on top of what we've already established. And then going forward, it is the most, I think, challenging and new and surprising things we've done. I think especially for me, and story-wise and everything. And I think it's gonna shock you. I think
it is nice to see when people see it that they didn't expect there to be emotion. I think they didn't expect to be connected because they're like, oh, it's an action show, it's dinosaurs, whatever, it's adult, so it's just going to be gore and killing. And I think people are taken back by, oh, I actually care about what's happening in this story. So that's pretty great,
And that's the big core, is that emotional angle is what we grasp onto, because you rely on dialogue a lot in story to help convey things and emotions, but this is just all about feeling, and everything from the music to the sound effects, everything, the artwork, the design, the color, the mood, all of it is about the emotion, and every element puts a spotlight on that and their relationship.
And when you care, the violence is that much more violent.
Mm-hmm.
It's, what I mean? It's not just gore. It's like, oh my God, what just happened to Fang? It's so much more brutal because you actually care.
Especially in that monkey episode where he gets beat up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I care about monkey men, and I've drawn any number amount of splattered monkey guts, monkey brains everywhere. And I get deeply affected by it, honestly. It's very powerful.
But I think we've actually come to our end of time. So I want to thank you guys for joining, all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. It's support is awesome for something like this, And I appreciate all the fans, and I appreciate the fan art also. It's all great. And as a special treat, we have a clip from one of the new episodes. It's just the beginning of something, and it's one of our favorite episodes coming up. So enjoy it, and thank you.